Let's get one thing clear. Ain't nobody celibate over here. That's right. We're not celibate. If you're listening to this podcast and you're practicing celibacy, I want you to know that I'm not. And I love it that you are. But I'm not a monk. So I'm not celibate. See, celibacy means that you're abstaining not only from sex, but you're also abstaining from romance, relationships, marriage, all of those things, dating. I'm not doing that. We are not doing that over here. The definition of sexual abstinence is contested and it's often confused with asexuality and celibacy and like all those other words. Let's get this straight. Asexuality relates to a sexual identity. Abstaining from sex is not a sexual identity. It is a state of being. It is a lifestyle choice. Often people do it for religious beliefs, but it's not a sexual identity. Now, asexuality is when an individual does not feel sexual attraction towards others. And celibacy also often has religious connotations whereby an individual doesn't partake in not only sexual activities, but they also don't even participate in romantic ones. They don't have relationships. They aren't dating. They're not going to get married. Now, depending on certain religious beliefs and practices, celibacy is practiced. It is defined a bit differently. Now, this is when a couple does not partake in sexual activity in order to strengthen their relationship with God. Basically, they don't have sex unless they're trying to have a baby. Anything outside of that would be not correct. Okay. Conversely, sexual abstinence is characterized by willing abstaining from penetrative sex and often is associated its activities. So anything associated with penetrative sex, you're not really partaking in if you're abstaining. But why is there so much confusion? Here's the thing, language matters. Okay, language matters. And people are always using abstinence and celibacy interchangeably. And I can admit, I will be the annoying person in the room who goes, that's not celibacy. Or who goes, that's not abstinence. Because I really do want people to stop confusing the two. I think it actually puts a lot of people off from even practicing abstinence or discovering abstinence because they think it's celibacy. I am not celibate. I have no desire to practice celibacy. I very much practice abstinence. So I don't engage in sex and I don't engage in most sexual activities or things associated with penetrative sex and things associated outside of that we consider sex. This does not mean that I am not physically intimate with romantic partners. It doesn't mean that when I am dating, all we do is like hold fingertips. No, no, man, that's not what we're doing. That's not what I'm doing. But also, I want to reiterate that everyone's abstinence journey is their own. And so how you have chosen to abstain and how I have chosen to abstain do not need to look the same. Some people are abstaining from sex, and what that means to them is that they're just not having any penetrative sex with anyone who is not their partner. But they might do all the other things. Other people are like, I'm not doing any of the things. We're not even kissing. The most you can get out of me is holding hands. It all depends, right? Those are two different people, but they both are practicing abstinence. So get it right. We're abstaining. We're not celibate. Abstinence can be empowering in and of itself, serving as an eye-opener for individuals practicing alone and couples who are practicing together, both in terms of understanding sex and sexual partners in a more holistic light. This is something that I stand by. Like, I I will stamp this. I'm going to stick beside it. I'm going to stick beside them. I'm going to stick beside it. I'm going to stand behind it. I'm going to do all the things. I firmly believe, especially when you are partnered, when you are in a relationship, especially for men and women, right? And I always say this, I'm a Black woman. I'm a cisgendered Black woman, and I'm attracted to men. So this is where most of my viewpoint and conversation is coming from. And so I think oh my gosh, it benefits us so much, even just in dating, to abstain. Oh my gosh, the things you'll learn about a person sexually, mind you, this is what I'm speaking about. What you will learn about a person sexually when you are abstaining, when you are not engaging in sex with them, I'm telling you, it's 100 times more than what you probably would have learned if you had started engaging with sex with them very quickly. Because we don't all really practice being sexually intuitive. We don't practice the art of arousal. We practice the desire, the wanting of arousal. We don't really practice the art of arousal, of getting aroused, staying aroused, getting someone else aroused, maintaining their arousal. That within itself is enough for orgasm. We don't practice that. We don't practice that. We get right to it. And I know that we are still animals at heart. I know humans are still, as big brained as we are. We're very much mammals, okay? So we're very much animals. And so a lot of things that we crave and we want, especially sexually, are just, hey, it comes right to the, jokey joke, not really, but it comes right to the mind. And so the body reacts and responds very quickly, which is why discipline is a huge conversation in abstinence. Because honestly, y'all, 90% of it is just discipline. 90% of it is just telling yourself, hey, I'm not going to ignore these desires. I'm not going to ignore this arousal. I'm not going to pretend this is not happening. What I am going to do is redirect this energy into something else. I am going to take this energy and I'm going to do something else with my sexual energy. Art is a great way, however you define art. For me, it's writing and speaking. Art is a great way to refocus your sexual energy and to actually be much more intentional and purposeful with it. The things that I create when I am probably most aroused, they astonish me. And I know that it's really only possible to get to that point in my artistry when I am at like a peak of arousal, because that's just how it is. And I'm okay with that. And so when you understand that you're abstaining, you're not celibate, you start to loosen up a bit. You start to give yourself a little more grace. You're not out here not looking for a relationship, right? You're not out here not desiring partnership and romance. What you are out here doing is saying, hey, kids. No, but what you are saying is, hey, I'm romantic. I'm a lover girl. Well, I'm a lover boy. I'm a lover person, inclusive. And I desire romance. I desire love. I deserve romance. I deserve love. I deserve partnership. And then, put all the other words onto it. If you're a monogamous person like myself, I deserve monogamous, romance, monogamous intimacy, monogamous romantic and sexual intimacy. Go down your list. If you're not, I deserve ethical, non-monogamous intimacy, romance. Go down your list. And so that's what you are out here saying. You're not celibate. You're not locking yourself away from love and romance and intimacy. Okay? What you are doing is setting firmer boundaries for yourself, not anybody else. Not anybody else. It's just for you. And it's somewhat of a mirroring when you begin dating and abstaining, because you will start to see people mirror your behaviors. I think it intrigues a lot of people especially if you've been doing it for a long time. Most people, after I was like a year in, most people consider that a long time. And now that I'm 4 years in, I'm like, babe, I was just starting. I was nowhere near, But especially if you've been doing it for a long time, people get intrigued. And the longer they're around you, they're going to want to learn a thing or two. They're going to want to engage in something. And you can engage. You can engage in sexual behaviors. Behaviors and activities are not the same thing. Let's get that clear. So you can engage in behaviors. No one's gonna stop you. You're a grown adult person. Do what you want to do do what you want with your body. Okay? Do what you want with your body. It belongs to you. Thank you. Stop allowing people to police your body. When we talk about this is the meat and potatoes. This is the carrot and celery sticks if you're a vegan. No, but this is what it's about. This is why I started this podcast, because I got really tired of people who were having the abstinence conversation wanting to try to control people's bodies. A lot of people who are having the abstinence conversation, again, are usually having the conversation about what's right and what's wrong. We don't do that over here. Nothing's right, nothing's wrong. Everything is, right? You are. So it is. You are abstaining, and this is your journey. It's okay if you hold someone's hand. It's okay if you kiss someone. It's okay if you go a little bit further than that, because you was caught up in the moment, throes of passion. I'm okay if you do that. You're okay if you do that. Everybody's okay if you do that. And you can still wake up the next day and say, I'm abstaining from sex, if it's within your confines of what that means. I grew really frustrated in year 2 because when I was looking for community, it was just a lot of people trying to dictate what it meant to be abstinent. And I was like, well, if we're talking about anything outside of just the language, if we're talking about anything other than just what the word means and getting down to the root of it, then I don't know what else there is to say outside of the definition. It just is. It is whatever that person's experience is. Nothing else. So when I would, tune into a podcast, or I would watch a show, or I would follow somebody on Instagram or Twitter who said they were abstaining and they started talking about their experience, it was a lot of, this is what you can't do, this is what you can do, this is what you shouldn't do. And I was like, none of this makes me feel good, and also none of this makes me want to stay on this journey. If anything, it makes me want to get out very quickly. But I knew that my conviction was stronger than their words and their assumptions and their self-appointed know-it-allness when it came to abstinence. Nobody knows it all when it comes to abstaining. Nobody's even telling it all when they're talking about their abstinence journey. So for anyone to sit up in front of any sort of microphone, any sort of camera, any sort of computer, and type out any sort of words, say any sort of words about what is and isn't right when you're abstaining is just... it's a bunch of malarkey. It's a bunch of baloney. Hey, look at me. I'm not going to say don't, but if you were to ask my advice, I would say that those sort of programmings, that sort of language may not make you feel confident in this journey. And I always want you to feel confident in this journey. I always want you to trust yourself enough to know that you are making the right choices for yourself. And sexual abstinence is the right choice for yourself right now. Abstinence, for me, has increased my self-awareness from an emotional perspective. it helped me really sit down and reevaluate what it was I even liked sexually. If you think about it, let's think about this. I'm 25. The first time I had sex, I was 18. I didn't have sex again until I was 20, and I stopped when I was 21. So between 20 and 21, a lot of things happened. Many people were met. Very few sexual relationships actually were had. But for the few sexual relationships that were had, a lot was happening. A lot was being learned. A lot was being explored and tried. And I'm very thankful to all of my past sexual partners because they were all very open. They were all very open and willing to try and explore things. And it helped me learn. And when I look back, I was so young. I'm still very young now, but like in hindsight, I was even younger. So present day me feels like, oh my gosh, you're a baby. But I don't regret any of them. Really, I don't. There were some there were some who might not have been the most compatible with me sexually. And that's all we're going to say. But I don't regret. Because all of those men were so gracious in their openness and in their explorative, nature. I really appreciate it because I never felt shamed in the bedroom. And I know that a lot of people sometimes when they start to abstain because they've had past experiences where they felt shamed in the bedroom. And I don't like that. I don't like that at all because something that I've realized in the conversations I've had with people who are abstaining is that when you begin to abstain from a place of hurt, a place of pain, it does make this experience feel even more isolating, frustrating, confusing, and not enjoyable. It should always feel enjoyable. It should always feel good. Even though I recently spoke about how my confidence was a bit confused, never low, but a bit confused, I was still having an enjoyable experience abstaining. But when I hear people express that they're not having an enjoyable experience and then they open up and then we learn that, they began abstaining due to a really harmful event or just something that they didn't enjoy or because they were just shamed in the bedroom for something that they liked or something that they didn't even know if they liked it yet. They just wanted to see if they liked it. It hurts me. It makes me feel not great. And it's another reason why I started speaking so openly and candidly about my abstinence journey because it is not something I think really needs to be so super private. And I'll say this now. I will say this. It is not something you need to blast on Front Street, right? It is not something you need to bring up on your first date. It's not something you need to bring up before your first date. If the conversation arises before your first date, that's fine. Because if the conversation naturally introduces itself to you and the person you're speaking to, who you are interested in dating, and who you may possibly go on a first date with, then that's just the law of the land. The conversation naturally invited itself. Then you can have it and you can just mention that you're abstaining. There's no need to go into no great big detail. Now me on the other hand, and I am going to get to y'all's questions. There's an episode dedicated to it. Trust me, but real quickly, I'll answer one right now. Yeah. Has the podcast impacted my dating experience? Yes and no. I haven't met a lot of men who are also abstaining, and I've met even fewer men who are actively listening to podcasts about abstinence. So very few men that I date even know this podcast exists. But some of them have. Some of them have known about the podcast before they met me and didn't know it was me. Some of them have known about the podcast before they met me and knew it was me. And others, the conversation has naturally arisen and the podcast is brought up. And in all those instances, it hasn't made the dating experience any more difficult than I think abstaining makes the dating experience different. Sorry if that wasn't the most insightful answer, but it is the answer. It has not made my dating experience difficult. If anything, it just leads to a lot of questions. And not bad questions, just a lot of them. Like, just a lot of them, because I have such a back catalog. So there's a lot to listen to. And if someone does do me the honor of going and exploring my back catalog, they're naturally going to have questions. And I answer them because there's no reason not to. Also, if I put it on a podcast on the internet and over 10,000 people, we're 30,000 strong now. So, hey, if more than one person listens, you know what I'm saying? It's public now. So I don't have much reason to be like, what? Well, I don't really want to talk about it. That's private. It's not private. It's a podcast. It's a podcast. But when I say that it doesn't need to be super private, understand this. Every single detail is not to be shared. I don't even share every single detail here on this podcast. One, out of respect for my own privacy and for my own vow, but also out of respect of clearly the men that I've dated and their journeys. You know, there's been one man that I've dated who was just starting their abstinence journey. And that was quite interesting. And one day, if they're willing, maybe they'll be on the podcast to talk about it from a male perspective. It didn't work out. And I don't laugh to be like flippant about it. It didn't work out. But that was so long ago. And I don't even know if they're still abstaining now. Anyway, we're going to go off topic. Answer. No, it has not made my dating experience any more difficult than just dating and abstaining has made my dating experience different. And if you have not listened to previous episodes, something I say a lot, so you'll probably start hearing me say it even more now, because now I've brought your attention to it, so now you're going to notice it when I say it, is that abstaining is not difficult, and therefore your dating experience does not need to be made difficult because you are abstaining. That is a fallacy. That is something that gets said a lot when people are trying to deter people from abstaining. They always go, but dating's going to be so difficult now. How are you going to explain this to guys? What do you mean, explain? There's nothing to explain. I'm abstaining. Oh. And that's the extent of the conversation. And if there's a follow-up to their which is, well, how long have you been doing this? Or are you waiting until marriage? Then those questions will be answered. But young ladies, understand this. And men, if there are men listening. Actually, I know there are men listening because I can see my statistics. There's a lot more of you listening than I thought. Hey to y'all. But understand this. Women. 9 times out of 10, when you do have this conversation that you are abstaining because you're dating somebody and perhaps y'all have been dating for a while or you haven't been, but he's seriously interested, you're seriously interested, whatever, the conversation comes up. A lot of men, and hear me when I say this. I want you to hear me when I say this, because it does not make them bad men. It just makes them men. It's not like men are socialized or conditioned to even toy around with the idea of practicing abstinence. If you take it out of a religious context, like if you remove the religious thing from it, most men are not even socialized in it. Where girls are literally brought up to abstain. They are. we don't use that language with little girls, but what do we tell little girls who become teenagers, who become young ladies, who become young women, who are then full-fledged women? We tell them to wait. We tell them that they should wait until marriage, or we tell them that you shouldn't let a man have sex with you until you are at least his girlfriend. Whatever. We tell them many things. We tell them you should wait until the 8th date. I don't know. We tell them all sorts of things, but the common theme here is that women are told to wait. So women are already socialized and abstaining, and so the conversation isn't so shocking to us when a woman says she's abstaining. I would say I've even noticed in same-sex relationships with women that when I've spoken to women who are in same-sex relationships, let me get my language correct, that when one of them is abstaining, it wasn't a complete shocker to the other woman. It was just kind of okay, that's what you're doing, cool, no problem. Whereas women who I've spoken to who are dating men, so they're in opposite sex relationships, and the conversation arises, it's often a shock. It's often a shock to the man. And then there's a series of questions that follow over an extended period of time, but they kind of follow the same trend. And usually that trend is just trying to figure out, how long were you really going to be doing this? How serious are you about it? And then can this man actually do this with you? Because listen, hey now, if you're abstaining and you're dating, that person that you're dating doesn't have to abstain with you really until you guys have a conversation and you agree to be in a committed monogamous relationship. Because when you are dating, what are you? Single. You're single. Why are you single? Because nobody has asked you to be their girlfriend or their boyfriend. You are dating. It is courtship. You're figuring out if you want to be that person's girlfriend, boyfriend, partner. And that person is figuring out if they want to ask you to be their girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, vice versa. But you're single. So, as long as you're dating, that person doesn't need to abstain with you. But the moment that they take the next step and they ask you to be their partner, boyfriend, girlfriend, they are now walking this path with you. And so for a lot of heterosexual men, that's a really serious thing to weigh, because it's oh, okay, well, obviously if I ask this woman to be my girlfriend, sex is still off the table. And for how long, I don't know, unless she has shared that she is waiting for marriage. But even then, you don't know. You guys don't know if you're going to be married in a year, 2, 3, right? So then this man is oh, can I abstain for a year? Can I abstain for 2? Can I abstain for 3? Those are serious things. And so I want to really encourage women who are dating, who are abstaining, to not immediately cast a man aside because he asks these questions, not only of you, but of himself. We have to understand the society and the world in which we live in, and we have to understand how men are socialized. And I'm a Black woman, so I got to do the extra work of also understanding how Black men are socialized. And then you can add on all the things: socioeconomics, politics, religion, colorism, all the things. But for the most part, little Black boys who become teenagers, who become young men, who become fully fledged men, are not socialized in abstaining. That is not the conversations that are being had. And so most of the men that I meet, most of the men that I date, this is a very new conversation for them, period. Forget it being an experience, whether or not they choose to walk this path or not. It's a new conversation, period. They haven't really had the conversation outside of probably a religious context, or a demeaning and degrading one where, it's jokes, or they're trying to, whatever. I'm not even about to get all into it. You get my point. You get the gist. So you're abstaining. You're not celibate. Go date, okay? Go date. Go talk to people. Go hold hands. Go get kissed on your cheek. Okay? Go, I don't know. Touch a booty. I don't know. Do something. You're abstaining. You're not celibate. You can still live this life. Aroused. But please don't. Like, all right? Don't do that. Don't lock yourself up. Hey now. You're not a monk. Thank you. I will be back real soon. I hope that you found value in today's episode, and I'm loving it. I'm loving being back at the podcast. I love having my episodes outlined. Y'all feel me? I got a little flow going. She got a flow. Y'all are getting episodes way more regularly than before. And they're a bit more bite-sized. I find that this is just better for my brain. I can be a little all over the place with my thoughts and opinions. So making episodes shorter and my outlines help me get episodes out faster, but they also help me keep episodes more concise. You see what I'm saying? You feel me? You feel me? You feel me? Okay, so 4 years in, abstaining, not celibate. Okay? Go live this life. You better go touch a booty with consent, but go touch a booty real quick. All right? For me, but for you.